Buongiorno! Welcome back to my YouTube channel, Jessi's Journey, or if you're new here, hello, welcome. My name is Jessi. I'm so glad you're here. Now, in the summer of 2017, I went on an epic solo backpacking trip throughout all of Italy. I got to see some amazing sights and eat some amazing foods. I also vlogged the entire thing, self-promo there, links on the screen somewhere. But I also know that a ton of people are going to be wanting to go to Italy this upcoming summer. It's a popular tourist destination all year long, but especially in the summertime, it just booms with tourists. Now, I will say, if you do have the opportunity to go in the off season, I would highly recommend that. Like I said, less tourists, and also it gets so freaking hot in the summertime. But I know sometimes that's not the case with vacations and stuff like that. So yeah, Italy in the summertime, so freaking awesome. But there are so many different types of cities you can go to. So I will be helping you pick where to go in Italy by giving you a breakdown of pros and cons to every Italian city I traveled through to help you make a better decision as to where to go. Let's get into the video, guys. Okay, so the first place I went to in Italy was the Amalfi Coast. I got there via Naples. I lived in Prague at the time, so we flew from Prague into Naples, and then I took about an hour and a half car ride to get to the Amalfi Coast. I specifically was in Positano, and oh my gosh, like seriously, I don't even feel like I need to put a pro in here. I just need to put a picture. Can I insert a picture? Insert it now. I mean, like, come on. Come on, look at that. I feel like that's the pro. It is freaking it's stunning. It might be the most beautiful place I have ever seen. I cried when I saw it for the first time. It is just absolutely gorgeous. The cliffs, the colored houses, the sand and the sea glass, and just, oh my goodness. And the people are so amazing. It is absolutely beautiful. It is the perfect place to go if you just want to relax and lay on the beach. Now, you do have to pay for the beach chairs, and it isn't a sand beach, it's a pebble beach. But oh my gosh, it's just gorgeous. I feel like you can't go there and not just be the happiest human in the entire world, because it is just so breathtakingly beautiful. I feel like I've seen one of the most beautiful wonders of the world, and yeah, I just feel so blessed for it. Now, some cons to Positano. Like I said, you have to drive there. You can go via bus, car, or even ferry, but it's not the most convenient to get to, and similar with anything else like Amalfi, Sorrento, anything that's on the coast. But honestly, I feel like the pro of how freaking awesome it is definitely outweighs those cons. Another con to Positano is the stairs. Oh my goodness. So there is only one hostel on the entire part of Positano. Everything else is a hotel. Hostels tend to be cheaper than hotels, and so my friend that I was with at the time, we decided to stay there. She was the only person I was with for the only part of my backpacking trip in Italy. After that, I was alone. But so we picked this hostel, and online it said just like a short walk to the beach. It gave the distance in kilometers or whatever, but it was like a 1 mile walk to the beach. And we were like, dang, we can do a 1 mile walk to the beach? No, this hostel is on the very tip top of the mountain. So to get down to the beach, you have to go down 1,000 stairs, and to get back up, you have to do 1,000 stairs as well. So basically, no matter where you're at, if you're in that one hostel in Positano, or if you're in any of the hotels, you're going to be doing some stairs. So con, but also kind of a pro, because you get your workout in every day, which means you could eat 2 times the gelato, right? That's how that works, right? Now, after we traveled through the Amalfi Coast, my friend flew back home, and I carried on my journey, working my way up north through Italy. But we went back to Naples so she could catch her flight there, so I had a day to myself in Naples. And honestly, I didn't feel too safe in Naples. I'm the type of person, I think I have a good awareness of danger if it's like really dangerous, but I also at the same time, like, a lot of times put myself in stupid positions that I shouldn't. So maybe I don't have an awareness of danger, but I feel very aware of my danger situation in Naples. Literally within checking into my hostel, a girl came into my hostel room and she was like, a guy just took my phone and ran away. Like, she was walking down the street holding her phone and a guy just walked up and took it from her and left. And like part of that is like also kind of her own stupidity for just holding her phone out, but I mean, it's kind of like a little rough and tumbly place like that. Like stuff like that happens. And when you're a girl solo traveling, you don't really want to feel like you're going to get all your stuff stolen off of you or potentially get injured. There are still some great things about Naples, and overall, like the people that I did meet, like the guy who owned it was like a hostel, but it was more like a bed and breakfast, and it was family run, so I got to spend so much time with this amazing family. They were just like the sweet. I feel like Italians in general are just so freaking kind and caring. So yeah, obviously there's amazing people there, but I would say the biggest con to Naples was feeling unsafe. Another pro to Naples, though, is it's so close to Pompeii and Mount Vesuvius. You definitely have to go check this out while you're there. It's insane. If you don't know the story of Pompeii, essentially the huge volcano erupted and covered the city in ash, so everything is perfectly preserved, and it's kind of creepy. Like, you can see people fully preserved the way they were when they died. And like, it's kind of scary. Like, people are like curled up or bent trying to get like air, like the way they're buried alive. It's just terrifying. You can see animals, you can see pots and dishes and houses. It is mind blowing. You have to go. Pro tip, don't pay for a tour. Go yourself. There are also so many tours running that if you walk around, you're going to overhear somebody speaking your native language without having to pay the extreme cost to get a tour to see a bunch of frozen people. From Naples, I continued my journey up to Rome, the Eternal City, and I feel like this is when my solo backpacking trip through Italy really took off. I finally felt like I was Julia Roberts in Eat, Pray, Love, or I guess Liz Gilbert is the real person. But yeah, I got to Rome. It was just like, oh my goodness. First, okay, 100+ degrees, so freaking hot. But oh my gosh, it's the Eternal City. You have to see Rome. Like, I feel like, I don't know, I'm the type of traveler that I love doing the touristy things, and I know some people are all like, oh, I go off the beaten path. But the thing is, sometimes the stuff on the normal path that's not beaten is really, really cool. I couldn't believe looking at the Colosseum, seeing the history, seeing like the roads that still had the original stones in them from when Rome was in full like empire mode. I mean, the Trevi Fountain, I had a Lizzie McGuire moment. It was amazing. I feel like a lot of girls my age grew up with Lizzie McGuire, so obviously Rome is amazing for that. But yeah, huge pro is just the history there. Oh my goodness. And you don't need to feel so inclined to take a tour or even buy a tour book. Just look it up online. You can get so much information on the internet these days, and it will just blow your mind. Like, you literally just step back in time. It's so freaking cool. Another pro to Rome is the food. Can I just say, the food? I can't handle it. I feel like this is going to be in basically every single category of every single city I go to. But there was something about Rome. I feel like it was the first time I really sat and enjoyed a meal. And I had met this one guy in my hostel, so we decided, you know what, let's just stick together. We're going to go out and explore. And we met this one man who owned this little family-run business. There are a ton of family-run businesses and all throughout Italy. And we went in and we were getting food. We're going to do a light snack or something. This guy brought us 8 courses of food, pastas, breads, olives, oh my gosh. I don't know how I didn't gain 100 pounds while I was in Italy, but the people were so kind and so generous with sharing their culture, and I feel like I really learned a lot about the culture. Now, I know that's actually kind of contradictory to what most people would think about Romans. I feel like there's this general idea that Romans are very standoffish and rude, but I did not experience that at all. I felt extremely welcomed by the families who were running family-run businesses, and just they really wanted me to embrace their culture and feel at one with them. That being said, a con to the people in Rome. This happened to me the most in Rome, and it really steamed my clams by the end of my time there. But people will just cling to you, they'll follow you, they'll try to sell you stuff, and when you tell them no, they'll keep trying to sell you stuff. And I'm a big person who I really like me some personal space. I don't really like when people touch me. And I got so annoyed by the people who just come up and grab me and be like, Bella, Bella, buy this. And it was like, don't touch me. And I said, no, so go away. So especially if you're a female solo traveler, be aware. I know it seems rude, but don't engage with people who are constantly following you. Be aware of your surroundings. Honestly, like, I got to a point where, like, I just had to put my sunglasses on and just not say anything and keep walking so they would leave me alone. And I know that's a very extremely common thing that happens there. And unfortunately, one of the bigger cons, but also that mainly happens around the big touristy sites, which I think is kind of to be expected. So just be aware of that and be cautious of it, and you'll still have a great time. And like I said, there are still amazing people in Rome. Another con to Rome is the prices. Like I said, it's the Eternal City. It's a very big tourist destination, so therefore, boom, they can jack up the prices with food, entertainment, sites, anything like that. So if you're budgeting, budget carefully for this part of Rome, or for this part of Italy. Although most of Italy is pretty expensive, you can do it on the cheap in other places, but you're definitely not going to be doing that in Rome. And lastly, a con to Rome is the public transport. Now, at this time I was living in Prague, where public transport is just like the best thing in the entire world. The buses, the trams, the metros, they're all amazing. And the subway in Rome was awful. You're basically sardined up against people, and you feel like you're gonna get pickpocketed or like shanked at any time. It's kind of scary, but also it does what it needs to do. Like if you want to get to where does the Pope live? The Vatican. If you want to get to Vatican City, it's a great way to get there on the cheap without having to pay for a taxi, but it is a little sketch, and I would highly advise not to take it at night. Right outside of Rome is Vatican City. I'm sure you've heard of it. It's where the Pope lives. I don't really have too much to say about Vatican City because I just went on a day trip to see the Vatican. I will say it's a beautiful little city. You go to the Vatican, you can wander around the streets. I don't actually know how you can tell what's Vatican City and what's Rome, but it was beautiful, and people were nice, and people were really helpful. Con, if you want to get into the Vatican, I'm sure you've heard this before, but the lines are hecka long. It was ridiculous. I got there first thing in the morning, and the lines wrapped around the building, but also it moved pretty quickly, and once you got in, you know, it wasn't that bad. I went on a day where the Pope was supposed to be there. I think it was like a Tuesday or something. There's like a day a week that he does like a little parade-y thing or something, and so I was like super hyped to see him, and then I realized in the summer he went on vacation. So he wasn't there, but you can pre-book your tickets in advance online, so just make sure you do that. Reserve your spot, especially if you're trying to see the Pope. Definitely get on that day. Also, oh my goodness, the Sistine Chapel, beauty. I saw the Sistine Chapel. Oh! From Rome, I went on to Florence. Now, if we're going to be really honest here, Florence was my least favorite part of Italy. That's not to say it was a bad city. Just when I'm comparing every city that I went to, I didn't really enjoy it that much. Part of that might be that it was like 110 degrees while I was there. Another part was it was like midway through my trip, so I was kind of just like lonely and in that solo traveler funk type thing. But I just didn't really, I don't know, I didn't really click with this city. It kind of felt pretentious to me, which, you know, it is a huge art history capital. It's where the Renaissance happened, the art Renaissance happened, so I totally, you know, I get why it's so art driven, but I felt like it was kind of almost like masked in like a fakeness of having that just like, I'm an artist kind of vibe. Like everything, like the buildings were beautiful, but then like interactions were just kind of like, they felt very forced. I honestly, like, it blew my mind how I would be standing, and this isn't even necessarily the Italian people, but the tourists, like I'd be standing in front of like the Duomo, which is the most gorgeous building I've ever seen, and people would just like take a picture and then be like, oh, beautiful, and then walk away. And like, it almost felt like a lack of appreciation for the history and the culture and the art in it, and it just felt kind of like it was showy and putting on this show of being an art capital. So I guess for me that was my con, but I also know people who have lived there before, who have traveled through it and love it, and it's their favorite city in all of Italy. So I don't know, that might just be more of a personal one. I will say pro though, my Airbnb host, first, she was fabulous. She was a local artist, and then she had an artist from from Canada staying with her as well. So we just sat around every night and drank wine together, which, like, I mean, you're in Tuscany area, like, obviously you have to drink wine in Tuscany. Hello. But yeah, she was great. We had some amazing conversations and so many great laughs over wine, so I was so thankful for that. But the pro was she luckily let me borrow her bike, and so I was able to bike around the city, and the city is so accessible for walking and biking. Actually, once you're in the main city center where like the Duomo and everything is, cars are not allowed, which makes it really friendly to rent a bike and travel through, and I highly recommend seeing the city that way, and not walking through the chaos that is the crowds. From Florence, I did do a day trip to Pisa. Now, I don't really have too much to say about Pisa because I was only there for a couple hours, which is kind of a con to the city. I feel like everyone says this. The real reason you go to Pisa is to see the Leaning Tower, and then there's really nothing to do. I had pre-booked my train tickets when I went there because I was like, I need to get there on this day. I need to see the Leaning Tower, and I ended up switching my ticket so I could come back like 4 hours early because I was bored AF, and there was literally, like I said, nothing to do. Obviously, the biggest pro to it though is seeing the Leaning Tower. I feel like maybe even more so than the Colosseum, the Leaning Tower is what you see in like textbooks and on like Italian prints and pictures and stuff like that. I feel like it's just one of those things that when you think of Italy, you think of the Leaning Tower, and I got to stand underneath it and look up, and I feel like it's just one of those things that everybody needs to see in their lifetime, because it's probably going to fall over one day, and then it won't be the Leaning Tower, it will be the fallen over tower. From Florence, I traveled on to Bologna, and unfortunately for like my 3 days that I was there, it basically rained the entire time. However, that did not stop me from absolutely loving the city. Any Italian person that I talked to got so excited when I told them I was going to Bologna. So I feel like the biggest pro to Bologna is that it feels like true Italian culture. I just like, when I told people, I guess it's like not really off the beaten path because it's still pretty touristy, but it just has this authentic, laid back feel where it's not trying to cater to the tourist. It just is what it is, and it has its history, and it's putting its history on show. Another pro to Bologna is the food. Like I said, this is going to be in every category, but it isn't necessarily a city that has a ton of sites to go see. So what you do there is eat. Hello, I love eating. I'm a food driven person. This was amazing. I had some of the best meals I've ever had. Some amazing meats and cheeses and pizza and pasta, and of course wine. I drank a heck a lot of wine during my month in Italy. No shame. But yeah, it was just amazing. It was a food experience. I feel like if you are a foodie, or not even a foodie, like if you just want to go and learn how to appreciate food, because that's what I feel like is so great about Italy. You learn how to appreciate food. You learn to savor the flavors, appreciate the person who put all the work into making it, enjoy the way it's making you feel, enjoy the conversation you get to have over it. And let me tell you, if you're solo traveling, that's okay. There'll be people for you to have conversations with. Trust me, I met so many random people just sitting at tables next to me who wanted to know why I was alone that I could talk to, so don't worry about that. But yeah, gosh, I'm getting hungry just thinking about it. Now, I guess my only con to the city itself was that there wasn't really much to do otherwise, and like I said, this worked out in my favor because it rained, and I feel like walking in anywhere in Europe in the rain is just beautiful, and I love it. But once I saw the main sites, I kind of didn't have anything to do, and I could have probably easily seen the entire city if I really wanted to in one day and spend some extra time elsewhere. But you know, like I said, in Italy, be laid back and eat a bunch of food. Go to Bologna. From Bologna, I went on to my favorite place in Italy. Now, I will say, actually, basically everyone I talked to prior to going here told me that it was their least favorite place in Italy. So maybe something is just off in my like judgment scales. But I went to Verona and I freaking loved it. So I stayed in a suburb called Busaloengo, which was super easy to get to from the Verona train station. There was a bus. I was staying in an Airbnb. My host actually didn't speak any English, but her son did. So her son came over every night and cooked for me and translated for us so we could have conversation. It was so sweet and so kind of them. But she had sent me directions on what bus to take beforehand. However, I feel like even if I hadn't gotten those, I would have been able to figure it out. And at the train station, the woman was so helpful. I feel like when it comes to tourist centers and public transports, Verona had the most helpful people. Like, there was one, I was in the city center of Verona and I needed to get a bus ticket to get back home, and I found this random tourist center, and the lady was so kind and we had this great conversation. She had helped me out, made sure I was getting on the right bus, standing at the right bus stop. She was so sweet. So definitely a pro to Verona was that. If you can go to Bustalengo, I highly recommend it. It's like a cute little suburb and the views are just stunning. All about them views. Oh my goodness, the mountains, and it's really close to Lake Guarda, so you can continue on from Bustalengo to Lake Guarda for a day trip, which is just like another, I feel like I just saw so many amazing sights. I can't put them into words other than saying like they were the most amazing sights, and I feel like that just doesn't do it justice. So just use your imagination or look up pictures on Google because they're just freaking stunning. But Verona itself, I loved. Now, I am a theater person. I grew up doing theater and acting. I've read Shakespeare before, and so I was kind of like, this is gonna be a little cheesy and overrated, but I kind of loved it. Like, I don't know, at first there's this huge amphitheater that still puts on shows that you can do. There are also tons of shows around Verona that you can go and do, like walking tours where they'll give you a map and they'll be like, okay, be at this address by 7. By 7:30 you'll continue walking on to this street corner like 2 blocks away, and there's live performances. The amphitheater in the middle of the city still puts on performances, and they keep all their sets and props outside so you can see everything. The city is so walkable. There's so many food vendors out on the street, which I feel like is the best place to get authentic food. Sometimes you got to be a little careful depending where you're traveling in the world if you're going to eat like street meat, but you know, I trusted everyone and it was so good. Obviously there's Juliet's balcony. You've probably seen the movie Letters to Juliet. It's a classic. It's super cheesy, but it's a classic, and you can go see Juliet's balcony, and I mean, it just has, gosh, it's like historical, but not necessarily like as historical as Rome, so it just kind of has this own little thing. Like, it's kind of similar to Bologna, where it's like, you know, we're history, but we're not trying to be like super cool about it. We're just historical. Whereas like Rome is like, we're historical and we're cool about it. But like Verona was just like, we're historical. And so yeah, I absolutely loved it. Can I think of a con? I only got like 1 gelato a day instead of my usual 4. Okay, the last Italian city that I went to was Venice. Of course, it's a classic. It is a tourist spot, but you know what? You got to get to it. Pro, it is stunning. Pro, there's great food. Pro, there's not really much to do, so you just kind of wander around and eat a lot of food. I said food twice. I mean, duh. But yeah, truly, I feel like you go to Venice to go see the beauty that it has to offer. It is sinking, so before we know it, Venice won't be there, so you should get there while you can. Con, it's extremely overpriced and it smells like fish. I feel like that's a good summary of Venice. I did camp while I was in Venice at Camping Rialto, which was super amazing. It was like a unique experience instead of the traditional stay in a hotel or a hostel type vibe. And you know, I could just say I camped in Venice. I mean, come on, that's freaking amazing. But yeah, I adored it. Like I said, you just kind of wander around and get lost in the alleys. I think I probably would have loved it even more if I had people to wander around with. This was towards the end of my month being alone, and so I think I was just kind of starting to get a little lonely. But I mean, come on, who doesn't love strolling through a cobblestone alleyway, getting lost, licking a gelato, and seeing a random boat go by? I mean, come on, freaking cool, so cool. Alrighty guys, that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you give it a big thumbs up, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with strangers, you know the whole drill. And as always, make sure you are subscribed to this channel so you get video updates of mine in the future. I post every Tuesday. And until next time guys, arrivederci.